Hello, everybody, and welcome into our part two of our hot takes discussion. The SDR role is obsolete in 2025. Today, I am joined with our esteemed panel. Let's welcome back Paris Picard, Eric Johnson, and our newest hot take speaker, last certainly but not least, Tyler Hinkle. Be sure to give them a follow on LinkedIn. To introduce myself, I will be your host today. I am Gina Guerrieri. I am Partner Success Manager here at Rev Genius, and we are ready to dive into these hot takes. You guys, we had such an incredible time last time. Our audience spoke. We heard you. We're doing a part two to finish out the last two questions we weren't able to get to last time. So really quick, guys, some quick housekeeping items. This will be recorded and will be sent out to everyone who registered, regardless if it was for the first part one or part two today. So be sure to drop your thoughts and your questions in the comment section. Guys, let us know what you think in the audience. Is the SDR role obsolete in 2025? What do you guys think? So with that being said, let's go ahead and pick up exactly where we left off. Give me one moment. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we will get started. Everybody ready? Paris, Eric, Tyler, you guys ready to dive into? All right, let's go. First hot take we have: marketing is the new SDR team. 45% of B2B companies reported that generating enough leads was their biggest challenge in 2024. Marketing is stepping up to fill the pipeline like never before. Well, what do you guys think? We're going to start with Tyler first.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. I think this is kind of a two-parter and kind of depends on your company setup. But I do think it kind of makes sense, especially I think we're seeing a lot more PLG style companies, so product-led growth. And when you've got a company like that, I think marketing is super pivotal in driving leads and pipeline into the product, right? I think a lot of buyers nowadays are just more educated than ever, like self-educated. You think about when you're going to buy software, look at software, you're doing a ton of research, up front. And so marketing is responsible for driving all of that in. And the touch points start before the buying journey even begins. From that standpoint, I do think marketing, especially if it's a self-service type of product-led growth, nobody's really touching anything. And that's kind of the point of PLG, is to be really hands-off and let the buyer go through the journey on their own. Where I think it starts to make sense and you kind of start to see a shift where BDRs and SDRs become important in that role is if you have a complex product or complex buying experience, or you're trying to convert those folks to kind of a sales-led path or annual contact path, you need those SDRs to kind of come in and help kind of close that or get that to an AE, right? And kind of explain what that process is, make sure that they have engagement in the product and you're seeing adoption there. So again, I think I kind of see this both ways. When there are complex buying cycles, you've got to have a BDR up front who's qualifying, making sure that it's the right fit for an AE or for your company. So I don't think they can be completely replaced, but if you're a strictly PLG led company, I think there's a case for that. So.
All right. Thank you for that input, Tyler. Paris, what do you think? What are your takes on this?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. So I think on this topic, right now in the market, what I'm seeing is a lot of organizations are trying to save as much money as possible and invest in go-to-market strategies that are going to have, the best ROI. And so I think I don't necessarily think marketing is the new SDR team. I actually think partnerships could be the new SDR team because partnerships don't require as much cost as marketing in a lot of instances, and there's not as heavy of a cost associated with headcount. So I'm seeing a lot of companies, who are investing in their partnership strategy. Maybe they're laying back on SDRs. Really depends on the size of the organization, but with partnerships, you are generating pipeline, you're getting leads, and you're paying a small percentage. And I think it's a really great way to drive revenue. Whereas I feel like with marketing, there are a lot of costs. So for marketing to replace the whole SDR team, just with like ads alone are not always best ROI. So yeah, that's kind of what I think.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Being a partnership manager, I have to agree with that take, Paris. Eric, you're up next. What do you think?
Yeah, thanks guys. Great to be back. I have to disagree with this one. I think that SDRs are here to stay. It's just the role is evolving. There'll going forward, we're going to see more like AI assisted SDRs. I don't think marketing is ever going to replace that, right? Like you're going to have marketing is, I think the function's more going to be about brand and Tyler, to kind of say what you said, like getting a buyer more educated before they ever talk to somebody. But I still think that SDRs are a fantastic conversion mechanism, right? Like if I send you an email or an ad, you can easily ignore it. If I call you and I get you on the phone and I see you've interacted, with some of our content or whatever, you are aware of our product. I make a pitch, right? It's on my skill as a caller to drag you into the pipeline. It can help accelerate those deals. Where I will give a little bit is I see more successful SDR teams that have SDRs report up to marketing. And I saw someone in the chat, Michael, there, yeah, like more consistent in messaging, right? Like think of the like your SDRs as it's not just about getting the meeting; it's about having human beings talk to your potential buyers, whether you get a meeting or not. That's going to allow you to pivot your strategy. Like, what do we need to say? In order to actually book meetings with folks, right? And you get that feedback on those phone calls, right? Because you have a lot more phone calls where you don't book than ones that you obviously book. Um, so that's kind of where I see it going, especially like at Nooks day to day. It's like, hey, how can we just make our SDRs more efficient, right? So they're not spending time calling people that never want to convert, right? It's like, hey, what's the hot list that we have? Can we give our reps the why behind why they're calling? And ultimately, like, come to a cold call, like, with some relevancy, with some research, let the prospect know, hey, like, we actually care about you. These are the reasons why I'm actually calling rather than just kind of a shot from the hip. So all in all, like I don't see marketing replacing SDRs in any capacity, but again, some of the best teams I see have SDRs roll up to marketing, and those SDRs are very enabled, right? Like they are it's very clear on why they're calling. It's not this high volume spam your TAM play. It's more of a surgical approach. Yes, they're making a lot of calls, but you don't need to make this like massive volume of calls. It's more about that quality of calls. And then again, getting the opportunity to change someone's opinion when you get them on the phone. And I don't think like just ads alone are going to replace that. Right. Like it's good to just be able to like send someone out to wrangle a prospect in, and then they're like, oh, you know what, maybe we actually do need this, right? This conversation, uh, there's just so much more on that channel than there is on just like, again, reading it out or an email.
I can agree more. I think all of these things need to be implemented and put into place and things like that, and changing the way we think about things. Tyler, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hate to agree because I'd like to go back and forth here, but I think Eric hit it with like marketing's responsible for quantity, right? Like they're going to be driving in quantity and volume of leads, where SDRs come in is the quality aspect of it. I'm sure we've all received, or seen where marketing's driven in, thousands of leads in a month, but not all of those are the right people and not all are quality. You need SDRs to kind of vet that out a little bit outside of even, your automation and scoring system. You need SDRs to be able to vet that, and then also like double tap into, hey, this is this isn't a great lead for us. This is not the right persona, but this is a great company. So to then go after that company takes, an SDR to do that. So yeah, I would agree that they are evolving, and they have to evolve with the technology and all of the noise that is in the industry. You have to be able to kind of, stand out, and AI is not going to replace all of that. It's going to be a tool to help, I think, SDRs become more effective. And if they use it correctly, I think it can be a good backbone to your company. And yeah, I'm a long believer in SDRs, but it has to I've had it work at companies and not work at companies. You have to make sure that it fits your model and the type of product that you're selling, and then evolve that into making sure that it generates pipeline.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a question from the audience. David asked, what are the challenges and successes of your organization in funding grantees? Not sure. Might need him to expand on that a little bit. Hey, David, if you could just drop in the chat, if you could expand on your question a little bit, we'll be more than happy to answer that for you. But yeah, go ahead, Eric. Yeah.
I was going to say, it looks like Edward had a question for me. So say SDRs using email is dead, Eric. Made worse through proliferation of content through AI tools, automated cadences. Has this been on the phones cut through the noise? I would say that email, my career is very successful, made through email, but that was like 5-6 years ago. I still send emails. I just send a very much lower amount of them, and they're always relevant, not necessarily personalized, right? Like I said this in the last call, like nobody cares if you like the Yankees. It's like, do you have a burning business pain that you can solve that I might get fired for? And then, okay, now we're having a chat about how you can solve that pain. Maybe not get fired, but I'm being dramatic, right? But to answer your question, Edward, I think that the phone is the most it's the highest converting channel right now, just because the marginal cost of sending an email with AI right now is, I don't know, hundredths of a penny, right? It's very easy to send out a lot of like relevant or personalized emails.
Mhm.
We can debate about the quality of those. I'm sure in a year the conversation will be a little different, right? But for at least for right now, the phone channel seems to be kind of a blue ocean. I mean, relative to the entire market, your prospects probably aren't getting a ton of cold calls every day. They are getting their email or their inboxes just assaulted, right? Not to say email doesn't work, but the way I have been successful is now using email as almost like a rep-led awareness play. And then when I do call, my name is relevant. They might have not have replied to my email, but they see, Eric at Nooks, maybe helping you solve for connect rates on your team, or, do you want to ramp your SDRs faster, whatever the case may be. There's something I planted in their head. Maybe they've seen our marketing, and now I'm going to have a warmer call when I do actually get them on the phone. So I don't hope that people ever reply to my emails. Some do, right? But a lot of times they're just like, yeah, I've seen, your 6 emails over a few months. It seems interesting. It's not the right time, but now that you've got me, what's up? And then we can have a real conversation about it, and ideally a book. So I wouldn't say don't stop sending emails, right? It's just, you need to be back to what I said. It's all about like super high relevancy, super high quality. You will stand out so much in your market if you're not just like spamming your TAM, right? Let people know that you actually care about them and you've done just a little bit of research on them, right? And also, just making a phone call requires effort, right? It's a lot more effort than to just hit send on an email cadence, right? You need to be prepared to have that conversation when you do actually connect. So hopefully that's helpful, Edward.
Team. Guys, we had another question from Marlo. If you're going to hire an SDR BDR team today, what should we really be looking for? I've read a lot about how entry level is dead. How do you balance this with an all-out AE AM team? Interesting question. I like this.
I think one thing that's hard is the skills of an SDR and the skills of an AE oftentimes are different. So getting someone to sign a contract is a lot different than getting someone on a meeting, as we all know.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of, so you're talking about hiring just AEs and AMs. The AE does need to, okay, it depends what your outbound motion is. Are you using phone as a channel? Is it LinkedIn? Is it networking? Whatever. But in general, I know like sometimes we help clients hire AEs and SDRs, and like we always are going to do phone screenings where they're role playing and they're cold calling us and trying to sell whatever the company does. Because if they can't like pitch or cold call and sound confident on the phone, and do the research on the client or on the prospect to have a pitch that resonates, like they're probably not going to be able to demo either. Um, so yeah, I think there's a lot of things you have to look for when you're hiring, but that it is going to be hard finding an AE who is comfortable cold calling and can get meetings. It can also play like a consultant and demo and know how to show a product in a not an overwhelming way where the buyer actually wants to buy it, and then getting them to sign and then time managing all of that together.
Everybody else, any thoughts on that question?
I have some thought. Tyler, were you going to say something? Sorry.
Nope.
I think that it's always been hard to hire good SDRs, right? I think it's just getting harder now. Um, the the big thing I'd say is teams that are most successful is like you got to hire for hunger, right? And then you can train the skills. And it's going to really narrow your talent pool down. But like, for instance, yes, you can get people fresh out of college. Like, we don't want to completely nix that route to get people into a sales role. But I think that what I've seen a lot of success is like people that may have been like former athletes or ex-military, like these people that have grit, right? And then need training on the hard skills. So if like your org provides like really quality training, right? Not just like, we do a quick onboarding and then you're, left to the wolves, right? If you can get someone that has grit and then train those skills and then provide them a clear path out of the SDR role. Let's be honest, nobody wants to sit in the SDR role. We were talking about this before we started. No one's going to sit there for a decade, right? It's really a stepping stone to kind of say, hey, is sales good, right for me? Am I right for this org? And then, as Paris said, I think that I don't know, a lot of, if you have the selling, I don't know, like the juice, right? Jumping to demo a product, I don't think is too hard. I know there are different skill sets, but I will disagree with Paris a little bit. I think like a lot of SDRs could do a brief demo of their product if they've been there for a few months, right? And when I say demo, I mean like very quick, high level, right? I don't think they're going to completely flop, but they're going to be the people you're going to promote to AE anyway, right? So you can almost use that as a sorting mechanism to find out who are the right people, get them on calls with AEs and shadow. But to bring it all back to the hiring, there's a lot of people that want to get into sales, right? It's really like you need to have very like pointed interview questions. You need to do like mock calls with them to see if they've got the juice. It's really hard to find out how does someone perform under pressure. So like those mock cold calls are really good, right? When you're on an interview, and obviously you don't want them to book the meeting and the role play. See how they perform and then give them feedback, right? And then see how they take that live feedback when they want the job so bad, but then you're like, no, 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 and maybe get them worried that they're not going to get it because they didn't book the meeting, right? Put them in a high pressure situation in those interviews. I guess the last thing I'll say is like, it's a lot of work to hire, right? Like I have so much empathy for SDR leaders that have to hire. They have so many applicants. It's so much work up front, and it's so important to their team that they hire the right people. So just be prepared for that, right? Like you just got to put in the front end work when you're doing your hiring for that long-term success. Like, I don't know, to me, it's like the number one thing that is indicative of success is, do you have the right people in seat? It might sound a little cliche, but one toxic rep can wreck your team, right? So be careful about who you hire. Look for grit. Pressure test them early, early, early.
No pressure.
No pressure.
I'll also like add in there
Tough
too. Like
rep.
I think that's the right approach. I also have seen, like, coming from the marketing ops and rev ops side of the house, the question mentioned like entry level, is dead. I do think that's also a gateway to, like, the SDR and ADR, SDR and BDR positions are a gateway to marketing as well, especially if
Fair
those
point.
teams are sitting under marketing. You may have somebody who maybe they think they want to do sales. I've also had people come, like, they know they want to do marketing, but being in a BDR role gives them exposure to kind of all the different aspects of the company, right? Like, they get to talk with marketing, they get to live under marketing, and so that gets them some experience. And then we've seen really great transition from those roles into kind of junior level marketing roles, even operations roles, right? Like, they get to know Salesforce or HubSpot really well. And so they decide, oh, I want to do some reporting and some operational type things. So that has worked well. I think that's a little bit harder to interview for necessarily. Whereas, like, finding, the folks who are, have the grit and have the determination and want to succeed, but I think you can have two paths there. So I just hate to see people, necessarily write people off because they don't want to go, into sales, or they don't have that drive. They may be perfect, as your next email marketer or your next, operations manager. So, yeah.
So we had a question from Margie. What are your thoughts on having SDR sit in marketing instead of sales? I would actually like to chime in on this one as your host, as a former BDR SDR. We roll directly under marketing. And I think, in my personal opinion, it's critical. It's critical to see how those marketing efforts and those marketing dollars are being spent, and how they actually turn into meetings and deals. And it's easy to pivot when we see these new marketing playbooks rolled out and we don't get meetings from it. So I do think that there's a direct correlation into AEs, or excuse me, SDRs and BDRs being rolled under marketing. That's just my personal take, just from personal experience. It's easy to A/B test certain playbooks, certain things that we're rolling out in marketing and things like that, which also led me to my partnerships role. So, but anyway, I'll let the rest of our panel kind of chew on that and discuss that for a minute. But that's actually my personal opinion.
I want to disagree with this. Just to
Okay,
add some
let's hear
chaos into the hot takes. I don't think that they should roll into marketing. I think they should dotted line into marketing, because if you are in the trenches and you are cold calling, like, you need to have like someone you can talk to that's going to give you different talk tracks, that's going, like, a manager who can really understand what it's
Mhm.
like to be on the phone cold calling. I mean, I'm talking about like a cold calling heavy role, which is what a lot of SDRs are doing. I think if you're dotted line into marketing, you still have that relationship, or like, we really need more leads, or these leads are really bad, or whatever the situation is, or these leads are amazing, marketing's doing great, which we love to hear. I think in like training, I'm trying to imagine a marketing person train an SDR. I don't know if it would make sense. I guess it depends how experienced they are, but I think that would be yeah, but I do think having alignment is critical.
Anyone else?
This is like the age-old debate, but I think, yeah, I mean, I think it really does depend on, the company. It also depends on, I think, the management, kind of above that, right? Do they have the experience there? So yeah, it's like hard for me to like lean. I've done it both ways. I would say I want to make another case for they should roll up under RevOps, or enablement. That's kind of the path that we're going right now. So they kind of sit in the middle of marketing and sales. So yeah, there's so many different arguments that can be made. I can't make it as like a distinct. Like, I think it really just depends on which like what company you're at, what's the model there, and what are you trying to drive exactly. So I think somebody in the chat said, should we call them marketing development reps? I think that's a great new term, MDRs. So
Absolutely.
I think Verkada does that.
okay,
They've had
yep.
a huge growth for the past few years. Yeah, I'll add one point to that. I was fully on the camp of SDR should report to sales. So I'm gonna disagree with you, Paris, but I have seen so many more successful teams. It's like, think of it too, higher up the chain, you're gonna have marketing leaders, but then biz dev, right? Like a biz dev manager
Mhm.
should report up to marketing, so they can still get that like sales training that they need, but they
Mhm.
get visibility into the marketing org. I mean, they're all trying to do the same thing. I think somebody mentioned this in the chat. Let me scroll up.
Mhm.
Jeff did there. Yeah. I agree with you, Jeff. I think, look, it's like everyone wants marketing and sales rowing in the same thing. Who gets attribution for this meeting, right?
Right.
It's much easier when everyone's under the same wing and you don't have that dichotomy of these like two separate teams, like, oh, marketing's throwing us trash over the fence. I don't want to call these leads, whatever the case is. It's like, no, if you're all in, just the structure of the org can help to eliminate some of that, right? And then tighten those feedback loops. I don't know. Yeah, I was fully, again, on the other side. I'm totally on marketing. And then to your point, Tyler, too, you might have SDRs not go into a sales role. Maybe you find out one of your SDRs is an awesome content marketer, right? Like they're just blowing up on LinkedIn all the time. They're making videos on their own, well, hey, like, let's make that your full-time role. Clearly you're making millions of impressions for the company on your own personal LinkedIn page, right? Like we have someone like that here at Nooks, right? And that's the route she is going to go. Um, she's really good at it, and we wouldn't have known that, right, if they didn't hire her as an SDR. She's just great, but now it's the, a totally different career opportunity than she thought, and that's fun for her, right? So
Mhm.
what a great way to wake up, to just like make content if that's fun for you, and then get paid for it. So
That's my personal nightmare, but I am definitely more operations behind the scenes. I want to create processes. I do not want to be, although I do love hosting, but that's besides the point. But yeah, that is my personal nightmare. All right, guys. So what do you guys say we move on to our last and final hot take? You guys ready for this?
let's do it.
SDRs are being replaced by account executives. I think we kind of touched on this a little bit in the last hot take, which is perfect segue into this one. 60%, 60 of companies have restructured their sales teams, eliminating SDRs and shifting prospecting to account executives. Guys, this is a pretty controversial one in my opinion. Paris, you want to lead us off with your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, sure. I think a lot of this is going to depend on the segment. I was in sales for 10 years and moved into strategy and ops. I actually started as an AE full cycle. So I think AEs were there before SDRs. No offense, but anyway, but I think what's happening is if you have a lower ARR, like it is probably not sustainable to have a separate SDR and AE role. Because you just need like a certain ARR for to make sense. But I don't think that SDRs are being replaced in enterprise because you just like need more training. You need to really understand the product. You need to be selling before you can start doing a more like consultative large deal. So I don't think that's happening at enterprise. The other thing I want to say is I am seeing like SDRs are no longer in house for a lot of companies. They're now like starting to outsource or leverage agencies, lead generation agencies, things like that. Just because it can be without as much funding coming in for a lot of small companies or startups in general. It's not as easy to rationalize having like separate headcount for SDRs. So I think that's kind of that's what I've been seeing, and I don't think they're going to be fully replaced, but I think I mean you can look at the stat and see there's changes happening, but it's still a really important skill to have. So yeah.
All right. Tyler, I'm going to tackle this one.
I will do my best. Yeah, I think I agree. Like I don't think that they can be replaced by AEs in smaller scale startups. Yes, and I think you have to, just from a cost perspective. You don't have as much pipeline. There's not as many leads and things to work. So I think that can work out. But where I've seen companies try to do this and companies fail is they'll shift that to AEs. They'll get rid of their SDRs. And then it kind of becomes this like roller coaster of like pipeline and no pipeline, right? So they start heavy and fast on, all right, cool, we're going to outbound, we're going to follow up all these leads. And then that kind of, all right, cool, they generate some pipeline, they start to work that pipeline. Now they drop off the outbound and they start just, cherry picking, demo requests and contact sales leads. And then eventually that dies off. And so they're only working deals. They get through all those deals and now all of a sudden they don't have any more pipeline. So they have to go back and start working these leads. So I think that's where like an SDR comes in and can kind of smooth that process out, right? They're constantly following up with inbound, constantly following up with outbound. But again, I think it depends on the size of your company, what your funding looks like. If you can afford them, I think you've got to have them. And that role will evolve. Like sometimes you'll be focusing on inbound, sometimes you'll be focusing on outbound, and then people start talking about should you just have should you separate inbound and outbound, or can they do both? But yeah, I don't think they're going to be replacing them. We kind of talked about this before too, is like they generate your pipeline, they generate your revenue, but they are also your pipeline for AEs, right? People have talked about these junior AE roles and kind of getting SDRs to kind of start selling and getting ready for those AE roles. I think it's just such a pivotal and important role to a lot of companies that it makes sense, and I just don't think they'll ever be replaced.
Eric, what are your thoughts? Close us out.
Yeah, I want to agree and disagree on some of the points. I think with Paris said it first, depends on the segment or even just your product. If you have a simpler tool with shorter sales cycles, what I'm seeing now is AI and I just replied to someone, AI replace the busy work, have like a strong RevOps function. You need to eliminate the list building part of SDRing, for lack of a better term, for AEs. If you can just get AEs to right, like have a call list every day that they can hit in 30 minutes, and they don't have to spend the time to build it up. Like use AI to build those lists. That's going to be really powerful, and then you can really kill it with full cycle AEs. If you're selling a complex platform, you're paying those AEs a lot of money to be able to close deals. Yeah, you should have them self prospect, always be prospecting, right? Like that's, in sales role, you should always be doing that. But there's a reason we have the SDR function, and it's to tee those people up. And like Tyler said, this is where I'll agree, is like you need that talent pipeline too, right? Like who are the people that are going to step up to close deals rather than setting? What I've seen though in the market is if you have a shorter sales cycle and it's a simpler tool, more like these point solutions rather than platforms, you can definitely get away, especially if you're earlier in your growth, you can definitely get away with full cycle AEs. But it comes down to really, really like clean operations, clean RevOps. Like you can't expect the AEs to, do the enrichment and all that, right? Like you need to get all those things off their plate so they can focus on the actual selling, right? If you make it easy for AEs, you comp them the right way, they're going to do it, right? They're going to chase the dollar. But you can't have them be doing all that mundane busy work. You're paying them too much money to do that, to be in a customer facing role, to do like operations and data work. Yeah, so I hate to leave you with it depends, but I think it really does, again, on the segment and the product, but totally doable to replace SDRs in some of those. But for the vast majority of people, I think like SDRs are here to stay.
Yeah. That sounds good. All right, guys. It looks like we are at time. We were able to get through both of our points and a ton of questions from the audience. Thank you, Eric, Paris, and Tyler for joining us. Thank you to our audience members who joined us today for part 2. Stay tuned for our next episode, which will be coming up in a couple of weeks. Hope you all enjoy your afternoon, and thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.